Whenever I'm close to finishing a mix and I'm pretty happy with how it sounds here in my room, I'll always go and test it out in the car, and I'll also pop in my AirPods and listen on here. And more these days, I can pretty much tell right away what's right or wrong with my mix just by listening to these. But I never thought of actually mixing on the AirPods until I heard Zach Cervini say that he's been doing it.
I've been mixing 95 to 100% on headphones and 60 to 70% on Apple AirPods and Apple earbuds lately.
He's one of the best rock mixers in the world right now, and he's one of my favorite mixers. So I wanted to try this. I want to see what happens if I try to actually make some mix decisions while listening on AirPods. So what I'm going to do is test this out in real time with you and see if I can improve one of my old mixes just by listening on AirPods, and we'll see if this is a good idea or not. All right, so here's a mix from about 4 years ago. Cool, catchy little punk song. So, all right, let's throw in the AirPods. Now, the cool thing about Pro Tools now in a recent update is you can actually add the AirPods as an output path in Pro Tools. So check this out. Boom, I got it. Now, if I just popped these in and started making decisions and mix tweaks, I'd probably go way off track because I don't have any reference point. I need to use a reference track. So speaking of Zach Cervini, I'm gonna use this song by Goldfinger that he mixed, and I've brought it into Pro Tools here. You can see it on the bottom. And I'm just gonna flip back and forth there, see what's different, and I'll start mixing, listening to these AirPods. All right, so the first thing I notice is that the Zach mix is a little more focused lower down in the frequency spectrum. Like it's a little more of the lower mids. Mine is a little more focused in the higher mids. And so his sounds a little fatter and bigger. And I'm gonna start with the drums actually, because mine sound a little more pokey and focused on the transient, whereas Zach's, they have more body and are a little more consistent rather than just kind of poking out. All right, there's definitely more kick in his mix too. So let's try and bring up our kick drum here. I've already got a lot of automation because this is a finished mix.
Just in time! 'Cause every day it only gets worse. Waiting for letdown to bring me in.
And the snare especially in my mix seems like it needs a little more body. What do I have on here? Oh, just the air, extra high end on the snare. Yeah, I don't think we need that extra high end on the snare now that I'm comparing. Let's pull this up. Probably need a little more low end there. Yeah, I'd like to hear more of the mid-range body of that snare instead of just the pokey transient. So let's try and saturate. This plugin will kind of saturate the lower mids, bring those frequencies up while also clipping off the transient a little bit. What I'm also going to do is try a clipper on my main drum bus. I don't have one on there right now. This is just going to, again, shave off the peaks, the transients a little bit, and allow me to bring up more of the body and mid-range of the drums. Try to add a little more mid-range in the snare. right, Zach's mix also sounds a little brighter in the top end. Like, I don't know, it's a weird thing. It's a little more just like crispier or something. Like maybe he's boosted a little more further up. Let's see. Let's maybe try and suck out a little mid-range, like 2K-ish from the whole drum bus. My cymbals are maybe a little hot since that boost. His cymbals also sound maybe a little more even, like they're just kind of pinned a little more up front the whole time. So let's compress mine a little bit more. Okay, that's a little better. Now, the other thing I noticed is the vocals. Again, like I said about the mid-range, mine are a little focused further up. His are a little fuller. So let's see what we can do here. I do have a multi-band compressor on my vocal bus, just doing a tiny bit. So I'm going to try and just EQ some frequencies in here. So it's both like a little brighter and also fuller. Better. Yeah, I think they're taking up a little more space in the mix now. I think a lot of mixers are too obsessed about their monitoring, right? I've seen guys spend like 6 months and thousands of dollars getting the most expensive, pristine, impressive looking monitors. And then they spend thousands of dollars treating their room like crazy and trying to make the response perfect and moving the speakers around by inches at a time. And guess what? Most of the time, their mixes don't get any better. And I'm definitely not a fancy monitors guy. I want to be hearing a real world representation of what my mix is going to sound like on a broad range of real world average listener environments. And that's why I love mixing on the NS10s. They help me focus on the mid-range, which is the most important part of the mix to get right. And the key to everything is knowing what a pro mix, a pro records should sound like on whatever you're listening to, whether it's a fancy monitor or something cheap. You want to listen to a lot of good sounding records on those speakers in your environment so that you start to instinctively know like what's the average amount of low end and high end, what's the ballpark range that your mix needs to be in. Chris Lord-Alge said he used to have a boombox in his studio and make a lot of decisions listening on those. And I think that these are the new boombox. This is how a lot of people are listening to music these days. So it totally makes sense to check your mix on these, and we're going to find out soon whether it makes sense to actually mix with them. So let's keep going here. So I think my bass is actually in the similar ballpark here, but the guitars sound a lot fuller and fatter in the reference mix. So let's see what we can do about that. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is switch out this slate saturation for my escalator plugin because it just does exactly what I want here. It's gonna bring up the lower mid-range frequencies and saturate that and make it take up more space.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Sinking below.
Okay, cool. Now I think we could still boost a little more of those mid-range frequencies.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Sinking below till my lungs go.
Let's also take out a little upper mid.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come.
I don't know about that EQ boost.
Sinking below.
Maybe we'll just turn them up instead.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Sinking below.
And let's try to saturate the vocals in a similar way.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Telling me I don't belong. Just put the lungs go. Let the tide come. It's a lesson. It's time to change your stone. Sinking below till my lungs. Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry. It's time to change your stone. Sinking below till my lungs go.
Maybe we could use a little more bass actually. Let's see.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me.
Maybe the guitars are still a bit scratchy.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home. Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come.
That was an AB of the original mix. Check that out.
Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide come and carry me home.
Actually sounds a lot bigger. Let me reference one more time. Let's go to the pre-chorus again.
'Cause every day you say you're closer, it's worse. Waiting for.
Vocals are a bit hot maybe.
'Cause every day it only gets to the brink, holding on for letdown to bring me. Not close. The ranking journey that you have to try, you're never wrong. Sinking below till my.
All right, well, I think this is going to be the moment of truth. So I'm going to take the AirPods out. I'm going to listen on the NS10s because other times in the past where I've listened and mixed on headphones, I get the balance really wrong. Like I take the headphones off and it's super wacky. It sounds really bizarre. And I basically have to undo everything I did. So we're going to see if the same thing happens taking these off. All right, let's go back to my main output.
'Cause every day it only gets worse. Waiting for letdown to bring me its curse.
Okay, it's at first very, very weird taking the AirPods out and then listening on the NS10s. The NS10s sound completely different. It's like they almost sound like they're in a tunnel, like almost very nasally and boxy sounding. But it's actually not too crazy. Like there's nothing that stands out right away as being like, whoa, that was really off. Let's check against the reference on the NS10s too.
I don't get how you think. You say only gets worse. When knife down to bring me its curse. Not closer. Journey that you have to
Ultimately, let's A/B with the original mix a little more.
let down to bring me its curse. With the never-ending journey that you have to walk through. Sinking below till my lungs go. Let the tide.
All right, I gotta say, I think it's better. I think all that extra mid-range information we added in there and emphasized, the balance is still good. You can still hear everything, but it's just a lot louder and a lot fuller. I mean, you can comment below if you agree or disagree with me. Now, to be clear, I think the reason why it sounds bigger and fuller is not just because of the AirPods, it's because I was referencing against another mix and I was able to hear what was different and what could be better about mine. But the main point about this is that I could actually make those decisions and make those moves on the AirPods and then take them out and still be pretty satisfied with how it sounds on the NS10s as well, and not have it be like totally wacky sounding. So I think I could get used to this. I think this is going to help my mixes get better. I think I can make accurate decisions while listening on them. But again, the referencing with other reference tracks is going to be key. You know, it's the whole thing about switching between monitors. Yes, it helps because they emphasize different things. I can hear a lot more low end and extreme top end on the AirPods than the NS10s. But ultimately, that doesn't matter unless you know how records should sound on whatever you're listening to. I remember like 10 years ago when it was all about the car test for me, I used to wish I could just bring my Pro Tools rig into the car and actually mix and make decisions there. I always felt like my mixes would be way better if I could do that, but obviously that is impossible. However, like I said, this is kind of the new car test for me, and now I can do it. Speaking of monitoring, you can probably tell I'm a huge fan of the classic NS10s, and I recently actually got a pair of the CLA10s, which is the newer version of the NS10s. So if you want to see my review of the CLA10s and also learn about why top mixers love mixing on NS10s, go ahead, check out this video.